Hello everyone and welcome back to the A-Side. I am your host Riley, and today marks an occasion because for the first time in 5.5 years, Paramore has dropped a new album. After a flawless 3-album run, Paramore dropped their most inconsistent album to date. Now, Paramore is a very special band to me. I love them a lot. I have so many memories with them, whether it's being an angsty high school freshman listening to Riot for the first time, or finding a newfound appreciation in the maturity of the self-titled record in the last 2 or 3 years or so. Now this new album, AirTV reviewed it, and he's getting eaten alive by the Paramore stans after his review. I didn't know Paramore had such a mean fan base, but he was kind of right about a lot of the things he said. Their new album entitled This Is Why is a great addition to their discography, but it is flawed. For me, it's right above Riot as one of Paramore's weakest albums, although I do think it's significantly better than Riot. It's not a bad album by any means. I mean, I'm going to pick up the vinyl when I get a chance, but it has its flaws and it has moments of weakness that really haven't been shown on the last couple of Paramore albums. Some of those records, I'll get into it a little more, have been so just, airtight, consistent with quality, amazing song after amazing song. And this record isn't. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you want. Now, on This Is Why, Paramore returned to a rock-centric sound after the 80s pop worship after Laughter. This time they decided to do something a little more akin to like post-punk or post-punk revival sound. Think, Interpol, Block Party, Killers. And I like that after all this time and its success, Paramore is still trying something new. Paramore understands something Fall Out Boy never could. You can make rock music without going back to the glory days and using the same sound you did in the 2000s. And you can change up your sound and keep things fresh without selling out and chasing pop trends. Even when Paramore made a pop record, it wasn't a sellout and it wasn't trend chasing. In fact, it was probably the band's most personal and real album to date. I adore After Laughter from the bottom of my heart. It's a perfect album. And I mentioned the self-titled album earlier, and I think This Is Why is similar to the self-titled record in a lot of ways, but mostly I think it's similar in the fact that it's going to be a really great rainy day album. The day this album launched, a few days ago when I'm recording this, it was raining, and I actually thought it was the perfect aesthetic to listen to this album. And then finally, before I kind of break down the tracks, I just want to say Hayley Williams has a stellar voice. Her vocals are amazing. They're always amazing, but I just want to say this now, and make sure you know this applies to pretty much every song on the record, because I don't want to sound like a broken record this whole time, every song. Her vocals sound great, her vocals sound great, her vocals sound great. It's Hayley Williams. Of course her vocals sound great. I do want to shout out Running Out of Time in particular, because I think she shows a really impressive and dynamic range, both in the notes she can hit, but also the different styles and emotions she can portray. She hits some belting notes, like on the chorus. She does that falsetto on the "she's always running out of time," and also then has like the quieter vocals in the verses at the beginning. So I think she shows a really wide range of things she can do. And she also does these like Robert Smith-esque ahs that I find to be pretty playful. They put a smile on my face. And I think the song just showcases, like I said, her range very well. And lyrically, it's not too heavy either compared to some of the other tracks on this record. She's just always late, and that's what she's writing about, It seems like she's always running out of time wherever she has to go. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to write about. I'm pretty sure this is a song she said was very honest, but wasn't necessarily bad, and that makes sense. I mean, we've all been there. I tend to be late for things a lot, too. This Is Why it starts out with the title track, which was also the lead single, and what a way to open the record. It starts off pretty chill with some really beautiful, like Radiohead-sounding guitars, only to explode to an energetic and danceable chorus. This chorus makes me go so hard whenever I hear it, especially with its hard-hitting staccato rhythms. The fuzzy bass grooves go stupid, and the manic guitaring keeps the energy at an amazing high throughout the entirety of the chorus. I really enjoy how the last chorus playfully switches up the melody and rhythm. It's a neat touch. Just think it's cool. And I gather that the song is meditating on the prying eyes of society, how you're constantly being judged for a myriad of things, and responding by saying, "Screw you guys, I'm coming home." It's about isolation to avoid the inevitable judgment that comes with the world. And lyrics about not leaving the house hit in a different way in the post-COVID world. I love this song. This is like a new Paramore classic for me. Speaking of new Paramore classics, it's really a 1-2 punch because it's followed by The News, which is just an amazing song. Like, amazing. In fact, it's my favorite song on the album. The lyrics are so interesting and relevant in such a burning way. It's a criticism of the 24 hours news cycle and how it can affect someone who's already dealing from poor mental health. First off, it makes you feel far more anxious than you already are. It burns itself from the inside of your mind. It eats away at the back of your thoughts. Shut your eyes, but it won't go away. It can also make you feel guilty because you think you have it hard, but others are suffering from war. And also, the idea that you have to care about everything constantly and everything. And people, it starts to sneak into like social media and Instagram, like what's going on here, and Twitter threads, and people constantly shoving it down your throat. You have to care about all these things, and it's so much for a person to hold, especially when it just never stops. Like I said, the 24-hour news cycle. And I believe the song is referring to the war between Russia and Ukraine, when she says, a war on the far side, on the other side of the planet. She then explains her mental health to us, saying, there's a war behind my eyelids, and she feels guilty, saying, far, I'm so far from a front line. Quite the opposite. I'm safe inside, but I worry, and I give money, and I feel useless behind this computer, and that just barely scratches the surface of my mind. 24 hours of constant bad news and sadness in the world that begins to creep into, like I said, our social medias and everyday life can really start to wear you down, especially someone who's already so anxious and depressed. And Haley begs us to turn off the news. I think the spoken word part where Haley dully says exploitative, performative, informative, rhetorical, deplorable, historical is an extremely effective way of conveying her message. The way she dully says these buzzwords really show how draining and repetitive the constant depression of the 24-hour news cycle can be. And how it can really start to make you feel apathetic toward tragedy when you have to, care about everything all the time. You just start to care about nothing. And throwing in the word deplorable as I thought was a really interesting choice. And I can't help but think it was a deliberate reference to the 2016 election, giving this song like a whole nother layer, criticizing obviously biased news networks for causing further political division and polarization in the country. The way the lyrics themselves are written are just amazing. Listen to some of these lyrics. Every second our collective heart breaks, all together every single head shakes. It's borderline poetic, and shut your eyes but it won't go away is like a really haunting line. Not only is this song masterfully written, but it goes hard as shit, too. It's got a dark intensity to it. The guitar riff is super catchy and really cool. It almost sounds like a war zone. The same can be said for the guitar in the chorus. It makes me envision the trenches of World War I. And the pre-chorus of Turn Off is so dreamy and beautiful, in contrast to the rest of the song with its intensity and darkness in the sound and the lyrics. And the drumming on the song is just phenomenal as well. Crave has a dream pop flavor I really like. It's almost like Paramore's take on Peripheral Vision by Turnover. Just a really pretty song. I wouldn't mind seeing Paramore fall further down the dream pop rabbit hole. And the bass on the bridge has this really melancholy tone to it. Reminds me a lot of New Order. It's like Peter Hook did it himself. I also adore Big Man, Little Dignity. It starts off really lush with orchestra instruments and all these woodwinds, including a bass clarinet. I'm a sucker for the bass clarinet because I played it. I love the Baroque art pop orchestra sound a la Pet Sounds, and seeing it pop up on a Paramore album is awesome. It doesn't last long, but that's okay because I think the guitar line is really cool. Taylor really kills it this entire album with some really standout and nuanced riffs, and I think this might be like the most like nuanced and standout besides The News, which is an amazing riff on the record. But I think Taylor actually really shines on this record. When the guitar gets a chance to really, like I said, shine, I think he absolutely steals the show. The News, This Is Why, Big Man, Little Dignity. My three favorite songs on the record all are very prominent with his guitar riffs being pretty front and center. And the chorus of the song is just beautiful. Haley Williams' falsetto is angel-like, but it's synth shimmering like the sunset over water that are the standouts for me on this song. They're just gorgeous sounding synths, and I think they play off of Haley's falsetto very well. Like I said, though, this record is flawed, mostly in the second half. The run of You First, Figure Eight, and Liar does little to nothing to me. And this is a big deal considering that there isn't a single song I dislike on All We Know Is Falling, Brand New Eyes, and After Laughter, and the self-titled, which I forgot to put in the script. But there aren't a single song I dislike on any of those records. Riot is a different story. It's hard to compare everything. That album's aged very poorly in a lot of places. But out of like the more modern Paramore albums, this is the first one that's had a lot of songs I don't like on it, and the most of pretty much any Paramore album except for maybe Riot. You First is a really by-the-numbers post-punk revival song. It's not horrible by any means, but I find it very forgettable. It's in one ear and out the other. Figure 8 has some really obnoxious yelling on it that I think is utterly unpleasant. And Liar, I think, is the worst of these three. It's so boring. It just sounds like a song that was cut from Petals for Armor, which begs the question, why make a Paramore comeback if you're just going to recycle sounds and ideas from your solo project? Sounds and ideas that were executed far better there. Oh, but it gets worse. I find Sacrum Saw to be an annoying song. The chorus is so repetitive. I don't care if it's in French, you haven't impressed me. And the na 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 is like a child's taunt. It's just grating. The verses are all spoken word, and Haley's like Boris Karloff impression just really isn't doing it for me. It's the worst Paramore song, and the only song in their catalog that actively irritates me, and the more I hear it, the more annoyed I get. It is a horrible song. I'm sorry, guys, but it's really bad. And while not necessarily a flaw in the album, I think the rollout was very poorly done. This is why In the News being the first two singles were very misleading. These songs are absolute bangers that also managed to be very progressive and fresh for the band. And the rest of the album is really nothing like these two tracks. It lacks that energy, it lacks that punch. Not to say the songs that are less energetic aren't beautiful, like I said, Crave, Big Man, Little Dignity. Great songs, but they don't necessarily feel the same way like This Is Why In the News do. And This Is Why In the News are easily my favorite tracks on the album. So I can't help but find the final product of This Is Why rather disappointing. And like, this album really doesn't live up to the hype. I'm sorry, I like it, but it does not live up to the hype. You know what record did live up to the hype, though? The Car. And that's what I'm saying, is like, setting the bar high for an artist you love, who releases really good singles, and has been really consistent, you know, that's not my fault, in a way. I mean, part of it is, I set the bar high, but another part is, like, other bands do come through. Like, The Car was amazing, right? And I expected the album to be amazing, and it was. And I expected this album to be amazing, because the last three Paramore albums were all amazing, and the first Paramore album was amazing, and the two choruses were amazing, the two singles were amazing. So I can't help but feel disappointed by an album that is lackluster in places. Luckily, I think the album ends on an incredibly strong note with Thick Skull. The song starts off with a really intimate sound. I really enjoy that. And the middle section is a little bit more upbeat, and it feels like Haley making confession, getting her emotions out. And the final section swells into an epic crescendo of overwhelming sound and a really blissful moment. The excellent drumming fills in any extra space, really adding some texture to the track as well. And it's just an amazing moment. You can leave the album feeling satisfied by how grandiose those last few seconds feel. I do really like this album despite its flaws, and I'm happy to see Paramore back and thriving. Is it the best Paramore album? No, absolutely not. But it is a competition of the titans here. Not every album can be a masterpiece, and some moments are stellar, though. It's a disappointing record, but one I still like, and one I will come back to, definitely the highlights as well. So, yeah, I'm feeling like a 7+ out of 10 on This Is Why. What did you think about this album? Thoughts on the review? Let me know down below. Remember, it's my opinion. If you love this album, that's great. I love it too. Just not as much as some people are. Some people are like, oh my god, this is the best Paramore album ever. It's not. It's not. I mean, Brand New Eyes clears any day of the week. Which I would think is their best album, is probably Brand New Eyes. But I mean, self-titled, amazing. After Laughter, amazing. All We Know Is Falling, amazing. Riot, I'll talk about that one day, but it's not a great album. It has really aged for me, and it's one I've really grown out of. But damn, those other 4 albums are like perfect. Especially Brand New Eyes, man. I love Brand New Eyes. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.